Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. I'm Billy Embody. With me is Shea Dixon. We're just over a week away from the Bayou Splash as you're listening to this. It's Wednesday. The Tigers are readying for a big Friday. So 9 days, 8 days, however long, away from welcoming a lot of top targets, commitments back to campus for that Bayou Splash at Brian Kelly's house, the end of the summer recruiting event for LSU. And it's shaping up to be a big one right off the bat, Shea. And we'll get to some of the names in a minute, but you look back at last year's, obviously the first year that they did it, and you go down the list of names, a lot of guys who ended up committing to LSU, who are committed to LSU, and who signed with LSU made the trip to Baton Rouge. There were some that didn't go LSU's way or ended up elsewhere for whatever reason. But this is a massive event in the sense that you've got this one little open spot in the dead period before that senior season, junior season, whatever season begins for these prospects. And all these schools are vying for their attention for just a day.
Yeah, first off, I don't know what that noise was, so I won't apologize for it. But my speaker wire, my mic wire, and my chair just got into a Big Ten level wrestling match for the first 30 seconds of the pod there. But now I'm coming through loud and clear, so we're good. I like to deal in facts, right? Or at least if we have enough data, we can make a judgment off of whatever topic that would be. I think in recruiting, specifically to this, is what you bring up, Billy. Look at last year. How many were there? Did you name it just now? My thing might have cut out. 7 kids maybe that were uncommitted that were offered. How many?
I can grab the list real quick, but it
Okay,
was
but it was a very high percentage. More than 70% of the kids who were there and uncommitted ended up at LSU, including guys like Toviano, as you mentioned. That tells me that this weekend, or excuse me, 2 weekends from now, the end of July, is paramount for LSU for that same reason. Because once again, they're going to have 5 to 10 guys there who are top targets, uncommitted, and maybe most importantly to the discussion, Billy, announcing their decisions like all before, not all of them, but many before their senior seasons. So with the dead period running until that week, then ending and opening up again in August, you've got 1 week to get kids to campus. This is your event to get them to campus. And then from there, anyone who plans to announce in the next month, that's it for face-to-face contact with any school. So getting a visit out of this open period is key. Getting a visit for like the big event on the weekend when everyone's jockeying to get every kid to every school, that's massive. So the kids who do pick to come to LSU and don't go to Georgia or A&M or Bama or whatever it might be, the schools involved, Texas, for whatever event they have, that tells me their interest in LSU is very real.
And you go back to last year, and the targets at the time for the 2023 cycle, guys like Shelton Sampson, Kylan Jackson, Javon Thomas, who's Texas A&M commit and ended up signing with the Aggies, but JV and Toviano, who obviously took it all the way and then ended up signing with LSU, Lafayette Kiowa, who was committed and ended up signing with TCU at tight end, but then Ricky Collins was there too. And then on the 2024 front, you had a trio of commitments: JoJo Stone, Maurice Williams, Xavier Atkins at the time. Now you had Demarion Johnson, Sterling Dixon, Wallace Foster, Kalaj Cobbins, Tylen Singleton, Burdell Richardson, Jawan Johnson, Kobe Young, and Sean Nicholas. And I'll mention too, in 2025, you had Ja'Cory Watson there too, and he's set to be back. So we're going to dive into a lot of these names, but when you look at who LSU had on campus last year, it was a really good group that for the most part, now you're seeing either signed with LSU or is still very much in play for the Tigers in 2024 and in Ja'Cory Watson's case, 2025. They did a nice job with last year's event just from the standpoint of it's not one of these big cattle call recruiting days from years past where you used to see schools bring in 150 kids and like how Boys from the Boot kind of originally started here or there, or a true junior day. This is about hanging out with the staff and just hanging out with Brian Kelly. A lot of these guys have seen LSU's campus plenty of times. This is much more low key. It's just more about having fun and kind of building up those bonds a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think we can split this into in-state and out-of-state because I think they're including, in this 2024 class, certainly beyond, but we'll focus on 2024. There's guys in state, Billy, and out of state that are uncommitted, that they are very much in on, that some have decisions coming soon. And like I said, that's kind of what makes it really paramount. When we look at Louisiana, I guess we can start there. I look at it and say it's easy for people to forget that when this at the Bayou Splash, when they have commitments, Joel Rogers, Trades Green, all these guys, and I could go down the whole list. They have double-digit Louisiana commits. Getting them there gets easily glanced over, but it also is a testament to recruiting Louisiana because those guys do stay solid. Like you sort of eliminate a lot of risk, or at least able to mitigate that risk a good bit more than if let's say Josh Mickens or Duron Reed, some of these out-of-state guys, if they're not around all the time, then they do have other schools creeping up on them, and then they end up going to Ohio State, going to Auburn, for whatever reasons it might be. But my point remains the same. It's easy to gloss over these double-digit Louisiana commitments that'll be there, but that's key because they're not going anywhere else. They're very firm with being a commitment to LSU in Louisiana, and that's what you're trying to build here, right? You want that to be the approach for every kid. That just puts me right back to three guys that remain uncommitted that all rank in the top 10 of the On3 industry rankings, top 10 for Louisiana. And Billy, I think maybe what makes it even more intriguing, certainly it does. If you had three guys uncommitted in the top 10 and the other seven were committed to LSU, it's a storyline. You're watching those three. When two of those three are the number 1 and 2 players in the state, it heightens that discussion a good bit. So the buzz, I'll let you lay it out. You've been putting together a couple of the visitor lists so far. Your thoughts with the disclaimer of a lot of schools are jockeying for these guys. What's the outlook on the big three? Dominic McKinley, the D lineman out of Acadiana, moving down to Tylen Singleton coming out of Manny, and then Wardell Mack out of John Ehret.
Yeah, I think when you look at Dominic McKinley, one thing on this front is they keep things really quiet, and they kind of want it that way. And Dom's pretty quiet in a way when you talk about recruiting. He's just not a big fan of it. So there's a chance he pops in. There's a chance he pops somewhere else. There's a chance he doesn't go anywhere. That's just kind of the reality of it with Dominic McKinley. He's gone through 4 official visits: Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. And LSU still has an official visit in their back pocket, which is a good thing. The Tigers are battling away here for him. So when you look at the summer, the last time, and I'm pretty sure this is the case, I don't think he's made a secret visit to LSU. The last time he was on campus was right around the end of spring. And so I don't want to say need, but you need to get Dominic McKinley at this pool party. It's very casual. It's not here's the plan for you. Here's all these things we're going to do. It's much more casual. And so for you to feel good leaving summer, I think that's kind of paramount that they do get him on campus on next Friday for that Bayou Splash. But yeah, like you said, there's going to be other programs really kind of jockeying there to get him on campus. He's a 5-star prospect. He's a top-ranked player in Louisiana. But the intrigue moves kind of more toward Tylen Singleton, I think. And there's been some buzz lately around Arkansas, around Texas A&M, even around TCU. And LSU's kind of in the boat here that, again, unless he's really kept a lid on a quiet visit, he hasn't been to LSU in a minute. And so for him, he's one of those guys you've got to get back. He's taken Arkansas, Tennessee, and Texas A&M official visits. I think he might have taken a TCU, but I could be wrong on that. So you got to get him back on campus. And this is one of those prospects that you look at. Manny, Louisiana, hasn't traditionally been a place that LSU has had success with. And Tylen has kind of been viewed as that guy that can change that. He's a versatile linebacker safety prospect who could play in that nickel linebacker role that can cover, can run, can do all those things, play in the box. And for LSU, they're battling to get him on campus with probably Texas A&M is what it seems like. And there's some buzz that picked up earlier this week that he wasn't going to make it. There's buzz now that he is going to make it. But as we've said on the Bengal Tiger, Shea, And when people asked us, as soon as the calendar flipped to July, well, who's coming in for the Bayou Splash? Well, there's 4 weeks away. There's 3 weeks away. There's 2 weeks away. It's still a lot of time. And even as 8-9 days kind of starts to creep in, there's those the pitches to come in and, hey, come hang with us, come see us, bring your family, do this, do that. All of those things are still happening because at the end of the day, these prospects are kids. They need rides, they need, whatever. And I just feel like if LSU is kind of in the same boat, I feel like, with Tylen Singleton, but it's probably more pressing because he's gone on record saying he'd like a decision before his senior season. They need him to come to campus if they're going to have a shot here. And I'll wrap up with Wardell Mack real quick, just because we expect him at this point to be at LSU for the Bayou Splash. We're also watching Florida, but he's a top 100 prospect. He's a top 20 prospect on 3, number 3 corner in the country. There was a ton of buzz around Texas. And as of now, he hasn't made a commitment. He hasn't made a decision. And LSU, to get him back on campus, is a big opportunity for them to continue to chip away, kind of, push off that Texas buzz, stay right in there. And, we've talked about it a lot. I think he's one of those prospects that, at least judging by history, you got to at least feel good about LSU's chances, and they are right in the mix. But as it plays out, I think that's a good thing for LSU, for him to take it a little bit while longer, maybe not make a commitment, but getting him at Bayou Splash, especially if he brings family, would be big.
Yeah, look, we don't have to go too much deeper here, but I will say, one, and you laid it out here, and Mac hasn't visited LSU since late in the spring. All 3 of these guys didn't come to LSU in June. July's been a dead period. Now you've got this open 6-7 day stretch before it goes dead again. And then toss in that Mac and Singleton are both saying that before their senior year, they're going to be committed. McKinley's not saying anything. For all we know, before his senior year, he could be committed, or he drags it out to sign. Like, we don't know. He doesn't tip his hand much. So it becomes so paramount for me, whether it is the Bayou Splash, Billy, or whether it's getting them and their family over for a full day on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is. In that window, they've got to get each of these 3 guys to campus. That's, for me, that is a huge indicator of where things currently stand with each guy, because I firmly believe that right now, by signing day, I think LSU's got a very good shot to sign multiple, if not all 3 of these guys. I feel that they're not out of it with any of them. But at some point, you've got to get them back to campus and really into your corner and start to build momentum. And I think that's what this week provides at the end of the month. So I'd like to see all 3 get to LSU at some point in that 1 week stretch.
Yeah, I agree. And we talk about follow the visits, and I think nowadays it's hard to follow visits in a way. I mean, but at the end of the day, if you make the effort to come to just a pool party, I think that says a lot. I mean, you're not like locking in for 3 days and, going to come for a multi-day unofficial. And sometimes that's a lot on families or whatever, but it's just practice, it's just a pool party. So I think that says a lot when it comes to getting these guys on campus. And, we can kind of not wrap on this. Obviously we're not done. We got a long way to go, but the Louisiana guys in 2025 are starting to really kind of emerge as true top targets and leans to LSU. And this is starting to kind of become a trend. LSU last year, they went on that run of Louisiana guys right before their senior seasons. This year, it happened earlier. Guys like Joel Rogers, Michael Turner, Kylan Billiot, Trades Green, Kalaj Cobbins. And then you get into, Keelan Moses, Harlem Berry, is the number 1 running back in the country. Devin Harper, who's one of the top offensive linemen in Louisiana. He's actually going to go to Arkansas, but they are doing a really nice job in 2025. And they're just kind of continuing to build momentum in Louisiana.
Yep. Jabari Antoine being in, I think, is massive. Keelan Moses is a guy who I think could be a cornerstone piece to the class. So him being there and maybe inching closer to a commitment's big. I love what Louisiana looks like talent-wise in 2025. And LSU's in a very good spot early on with so many of those guys who've been around campus so often. both this past fall during Kelly's first season, but more recently here in the spring and the summer months. So I like what they're doing in Louisiana.
Yeah, I agree. And now you kind of move into the out of state. But first, Shay, we got to talk to our friends about our friends at rogueshop.com. Rogueshop.com, promo code Bengal Tiger gets you 10% off your order. Richard and Shar run it. You could be finding yourself live chatting with them on the website about all your needs, whether it's pain, anxiety, sleep, all those issues. They'll get you hooked up with what you need. But Richard's out there dropping little treats on the Bengal Tiger for Bengal Tiger subscribers, 30% off here and there on certain items. So people are jumping on it big time, especially now you're getting into the fall. We're going to see probably another run of decisions come from top targets for LSU and around the country. So it's no better time than to jump on the Rogue Shop train, get you some edibles, some pain creams, some tinctures, all of those things to take care of that maybe anxiety that comes with following recruiting as deeply as some of you do.
A lot of our board is on board, and for good reason. They're fanatics. They are need a good bit of what Rogue Shop has to offer. I will say, Billy, the pain cream, again, 2 weeks in a row, paying off. This is a very kind of now growing old man thing to say, but lots of yard work, which I was doing in my bird dog shorts. Shout out them. But bad back pain one night. I think I just tweaked it a little bit. 2 days with the pain cream, felt fine, got me through about a 48-hour little kind of back spasm, good to go. So that has moved up. I know it's been number one on your list. That's moving up my list of Rogue Shop products. Like my top 5, it's moving into it and up.
Well, the thing that has made a big jump for me lately is the edibles. Just kind of sleeping and trying to wind down a little bit. It's just that time of year where it is so crazy. You want to take a little breather. Football season is a grind. We want to be able to kind of relax and just really kind of take July slow, at least until Bayou Splash. And so the gummies have been a game changer for me. I've been jumping into those a little bit more.
Shout out to everybody at Rogue Shop. Again, promo code Bengal Tiger, same as always.
Check them out, rogueshop.com, promo code Bengal Tiger, 10% off your order. Shay, we move into the out-of-state portion of this podcast, and I think everyone is always asking about Colin Simmons, the 5-star edge rusher from Duncanville, the number 1 edge rusher in the country. He is set to be in Baton Rouge that weekend for the Bayou Splash, which is massive news. Last year wasn't able to make it. This year, looking like he's going to come. A&M is battling for him to get on campus. Texas has held a lot of buzz here. But Colin Simmons this is one of those guys where you like where the visits stand with LSU. Texas has also hosted him a lot. A&M has hosted him a lot. Those are the 3 that are really kind of standing out to me the most right now in this recruitment. But again, what do you do when you have a chance to just go to a pool party? And Javian Toviano was there last year. He returned relatively quickly in the season for his official visit. Colin Simmons, his official visit will be later on in the fall for the Florida game. But he's one of those guys that LSU just keeps getting him around. And I think the big thing is, his family has spent a lot of time in Baton Rouge with him. I've said this on the board. I at least feel as good about LSU's chances as I have throughout the recruitment right now, and especially with him coming to Bayou Splash. That's a good sign.
Texas and LSU, the 2 teams that have gotten the most visits from Colin Simmons. When you asked Colin Simmons, or when On3 asked him up in Nashville at the NIL Summit, who his top teams were, he said Texas and LSU. So his actions are tracking his words at this point. He is set on record this summer. Those were the top 2 teams. We know A&M's in this. There are a lot of other teams involved and certainly got visits out of them, official visits. I will point out, Billy, LSU has an official visit left. Texas, who right now, as you see, is the On3 RPM leader to land Colin Simmons, the in-state team, sitting in that top spot. They've used their official visit. So for me, the longer this plays out, the better for LSU. That's what I believe. I also think that getting him in for a weekend like this would be very telling. So with all the out-of-state guys we can talk about, and there's a number coming, and we'll highlight a few of them, Simmons is far and away the most important prospect.
Oh, 100%. And look, we're continuing to kind of track his teammate, Caden Durham, one of the best running backs in the country, who is really, for the most part, everybody thinks he's down to LSU and OU. He hasn't confirmed his plans just yet for the Bayou Splash, but also A&M is hanging around there on Caden Durham. They might get him on campus. So there's a lot of, again, that jockeying we talked about, and they're within a drivable distance in a way for these guys, if they choose to drive, to get in the car and kind of make that decision last minute. So Colin Simmons, though, pretty locked in on visiting LSU this weekend from what I hear, or next weekend from what I hear. But he's one of those prospects that, if he takes it into the fall, it's almost like, all right, is this going to be not a reset? I think we've seen the finalists now, and the finalists are kind of shaping up to be what JV and Toviano's were in the end as well, which is worth noting with those two being Dallas guys. LSU's making a big push for Colin Simmons to cap this summer. And look, you've got to get him committed. You've got to get him signed, all those things. But I think just the momentum they have is starting to at least be visible with Colin Simmons, more than just, okay, he popped in again and came around. And same if Caden Durham hits campus. He would then have had 2 visits back-to-back to LSU within a month, and he's still set to announce on August 25th before his season opener.
Yeah, and I had heard Buzz Billy today, I guess, maybe it was a couple days ago, that, and I haven't gotten this confirmed, but that Durham, who obviously runs track, his mom was a track athlete at Oklahoma, which has Sooners and LSU are battling here as the top 2 teams, but that his sister was going to be running in some
The Junior
Team
Olympics.
USA qualifier or something, and that the family was going to go to that on that weekend. So we'll see. Does he visit nowhere? Does he go with family to this track event? Like I said, I haven't confirmed it, but I did hear that from a source who had mentioned, hey, he might end up not going anywhere if he does go on this family event. So we'll see. But yes, big decision looming there, August 25th. Anyone else you're circling major out-of-state target? Because at this point, there are really just a handful of them that you're saying, hey, LSU could land a commitment from them, and it would be really paramount if they got him in this weekend.
I'll mention Kobe Black, 5-star cornerback out of the Waco area. He went on record saying he was coming for the Bayou Splash, and then he was going to have an official visit early in the season, I think for the Grambling game. And if he shows up, that's at least a good sign that LSU's still in it. They're still swinging, and trying to, once again, kind of overcome Texas buzz for a prospect. A&M's working to get him on campus as well. And he's really trending towards, once again, kind of that LSU Texas A&M battle that is shaping up. And so he's one that just doesn't really say much and keeps to himself for the most part. But that is a big one. And then 2 more that I think both of us probably thought would be, decided by now. One is Kai Bates. And the reason why I say Kai Bates is because when I talked to him, he said he really wanted to be committed and go somewhere that final weekend of July to wherever he was committed. So I think that's worth watching if we do see Kai Bates make a decision. Maybe it stretches into August, but he'd be one that I would, if you're LSU, you're at least trying. You're trying to get him back on campus for that final time before everybody locks in on fall camp, or some of these guys, make that final decision. And then, I guess 3 more, Blake Ivy or 2 more after this. And Blake Ivy, the 4-star offensive lineman out of Texas, and then Ori Williams, one of the big risers for On3 in the rankings, now into that top 40 offensive tackle spot nationally. Both of those guys, they could go somewhere. It truly is some of the times these things just kind of happen last minute, especially for these guys that have been on the road a ton, doing official visits and all of that.
I like those picks. Jelani Watkins told me that he plans to visit A&M on an official visit at the end of July. Is that a weekend visit? Is that a midweek visit? I do not know for sure there, but he'll be a guy we'll monitor. We'll repeat. It's so much jockeying with these teams for kids. And that's been sort of the buzzword, jockeying. And that's what it is, because everyone right now is getting kids to say, yeah, I'd love to come, love to be there. Yeah. No, I'll line up some travel. I'll get over there. But do they actually leave? And when they get in the car, where do they actually go? And that's what we watch for. This is a fun time of year. It's kind of a unique sandwiched in between two dead periods weekend where everyone's battling before football season starts. As we mentioned, so many of these kids setting up to commit before they become seniors. So definitely a massive recruiting weekend. Billy, let's wrap here. And we've talked about everybody at length, so we'll obviously be picking somebody from this group, but your number one most important target that they get to campus that weekend.
I think it's probably Dominic McKinley in terms of who they get to campus, right? So who I need to see LSU get to campus the most, right? Or is it the one?
Like who in your mind is the most important person they need to get there for that weekend?
It's toss up between Dominic McKinley and Colin Simmons, but I've got to go Dominic McKinley because he took 4 official visits. He hasn't even swung through LSU for an unofficial, even maybe around a camp or something. You know, they had the midweek camp he didn't come to. I need to see Dominic McKinley there to make me feel like LSU. And if he does take it all the way to signing day, they've got time. But you need to see Dominic McKinley, the number 1 player in Louisiana, there for that weekend. And out of state, I mean, it's Colin Simmons, although I think it has an impact. I just think he's seen a lot already. And I just think they're already in a good spot there.
I really like that pick. I didn't think you'd go it, but I like that for the exact reasons you said. I'll stick with a similar theme, but different reason, or at least why it becomes paramount. I'll go Wardell Mack. And in the same breath, I could say Tylen Singleton. They're Louisiana kids like McKinley, but both have decisions that they're about to make before their senior year. So we know Mack's going to be there. We'll see if Singleton ends up showing up, but getting them to campus before they turn around and make a decision is huge. So people want to know, hey, are those guys going to end up LSU? Does LSU lock up Louisiana? Getting them at this stage of their recruitment on the verge in sort of the 11th hour before they commit would be huge for me.
Yep. I think you hit the nail on the head. Look, we're still over a week away. So we're going to be right back here, I'm sure, next week previewing this again. But we did want to talk a little bit about it for you guys because it is, I mean, really the only recruiting piece of news that we have this month for the most part. This is what it's all about. It's if there was a mini Super Bowl in July, this would be the Super Bowl of recruiting in July. And so many people kind of hinge how they feel on a lot of guys based on if they get them back to campus. So it's a big next weekend coming up for Brian Kelly and co.
All right, let's lock in. Like you said, we'll be right back here on next week's pod talking about the exact same stuff again, but more updates on who will actually be here confirmed and feeling good a few days out. So shout out to everybody listening. Next week's pod, we'll run it back, but we'll actually have more of a confirmed list. It'll be fun.
Yep, no doubt. So hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to the BengalTiger.com. Be on the lookout. Lots of recruiting news. I mean, Shea, we had the whole front page was Bayou Splash, recruiting updates, nuggets, all of those things on Tuesday, I guess the day before we dropped this pod. So it's just flying left and right. So it's a great time to jump on board, especially with fall camp around the corner. With that, everybody, thanks for listening to this edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. We'll catch you next week with another edition. Hope you guys have a great one, and we'll catch you next time.